Houston nurse who tried to help Takeoff speaks about the tragic shooting.
It's not there.
When you heard it and then you ran to help, and then you kind of can talk about what you saw after, how the aftermath of the shooting was.
The only two people I remember in my head, everybody else has blurred out faces except for the uncle and him. I don't remember one person because everything happened so quickly.
So start from the beginning, what you heard and what you did.
We're not going to disclose who I am or where I live.
Sure, of course not.
For my safety, because you know people are crazy these
Or we
days.
can safely say that you live close by.
I live close by.
Yeah, I do too, so.
Yes. And I heard, pow, 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 pow. And it stopped. And I went, that's so weird. So I got up in my pajamas, go over to the balcony. My neighbors were underneath me. I said, did y'all hear that? And they said, yeah. I said, I don't think that was a car or firecrackers. That sounded like gunshots. So then we saw people running. I was like, oh my God, that's an active shooter. So I wasn't in my head at that moment. I'm thinking, I'm not going anywhere. Okay. But then I saw people settle down and go back, and I heard the uncle go, ah! He was screaming, ah! So I'm thinking that's the victim. That's the person who shot. It sounded like a cry of agony. It was a cry of agony, but emotional, not physical. And they were crying out for. So then they're coming out looking for the ambulance. Where's the ambulance? Somebody help! So then they're looking for help, and they're going towards where the shooting was. So I'm thinking, okay, scene is safe. Somebody's hurt. Man down. I got things that could help. I'm an infusion nurse. I have a whole trunk full of stuff, right? But threw on some clothes, got my stuff out of my trunk, and ran over there. And you can hear my voice in the video. I'm a nurse. No, I'm a nurse. Because I wanted to let them know. So I started saying that from the bottom floor, and they said, take the elevator. So I came up the elevator, and they started pulling on me like to come quickly. And that's when I was like, no, like leave me alone. Because I was like this too. I was scared, but I had to go. Because if somebody was shot in the leg, in the arm, somewheres where maybe they don't have the tourniquet on right. Maybe he finally does collapse and they don't know how to do CPR the correct way. I mean, for minutes I could at least do that. And not only am I risking that, but legally I am not protected in the state of Texas. For a Good Samaritan Act. So, because I am a nurse. So when I got there, I looked at him. His head was this way and up, and his eyes were rolled back and fixed. And
Hear the nurse's full 15-minute interview on my YouTube channel at YouTube Tunes.
I've stopped for car accidents before. I never move the patient. Rule number one, don't touch him. Because if it was something in his neck that could have been taken care of, I don't want to move his neck. And then he's paralyzed, then I'm in trouble, right? No, don't move it.
People on social media are saying, why didn't you do CPR and this kind of thing? That would not be appropriate?
That would not be appropriate, especially with a gunshot wound. You would never do CPR because you would be circulating the blood and the blood would go right out of the hole. So the first thing to do is to put pressure on the wound. That was too late. I checked his pulse. Plus, it was probably, I heard it 2:30ish or so. I was back calling my daughter. The phone call was at 3:16 in the morning. It's on my phone. 3:16 is when I called her. So I was already back, shook up. And when I called her, it was more like, oh, and she said, Mom, so are you okay? Slow down. Because she's a nurse too. And so I'm calling her. I'm like, oh my God.
Did you know who he was?
No clue. He was a human being. That's it.
Talk a little bit more about what you just said. You said you were scared, but you had to go.
Because I heard somebody crying out for help. And I thought at least I could get them stabilized or just sit there with them until the EMS got there. I've stopped for like car accidents and stuff before. I don't move them out of the vehicle. But I'll hold their hand. One of the ladies, I went and got her child out of school. I took the child to the hospital. I could be helpful in other ways. I don't have to, and make sure EMS is getting there. So if CPR did need to be started, absolutely got started. I get in trouble, but
when you realized it was too late, you saw what you saw, and then the ambulance came. Did you stay?
YouTube Tunes.
I didn't stay for the ambulance, but they were there. I heard they were there, so I left the scene. I was pretty shaken up. I checked his pulse. I checked the carotid pulse. I checked it on here. I checked again. I can't pronounce someone dead, but I think he was deceased, probably. Assumptions are made. This is an assumption on impact, probably. Did take long.
And you mentioned you've been doing this almost 30 years. You've never seen this type of trauma in person?
No. I mean, I've handled emergent situations, but I've never I'm not an ER nurse, so no gunshot wound kind of thing. Patients bleeding out, yeah, I've for different reasons, post-surgery, that kind of thing, yeah, I've handled those situations.
Can you recall what it was like around you while you were trying to assist him with other
The
people?
uncle was very distraught. I mean, after I told him, I said, no. And I started crying, and he grabbed me, and he's like, please, please. And I started bawling, and I was like, then I came back across the street, my neighbors were out, and I was crying, and I'm like, typical nurse, I was beating myself up. I should have gone sooner. What if I would have been 5 minutes sooner? Sorry.
What would you say to people questioning your actions or anything?
I don't really care.
Did you see the other people who were shot as well?
They were already gone. All I know is he's a 28-year-old male, and that's my son over there, and somebody is his mother.
What do you think, living in the vicinity and presumably having gone to businesses there, maybe even this one, what is your just general thoughts about that happening there?
I feel safe. I've been in the area a couple of years, and I feel completely safe down here. And I don't feel unsafe because of this incident, because it was isolated, and it was people that aren't from here. They were visiting. Not to say that our people in Houston wouldn't do it, but and there's a huge police presence down here and video cameras everywhere. So people that live downtown, even the homeless, they know not to start eating stuff because you'll be caught. You will be caught. So I never see people doing drugs on the side of the street. I never see anybody getting purse-napped. Nothing ever. I've never even seen a fight in the street downtown. So in just that day, I was telling my friends, downtown is safe. There's never any gunshots or anything at night. I'm like, well, crap, I'll never see that again.
You said earlier, you've been keeping up with this pretty diligently. Knowing what you know and you being part of the initial response, I mean, how do you feel about the way it's been playing out so far? Knowing that there isn't any suspects, knowing that there hasn't been any arrests.
It's going to happen. They'll find them. There's video of somebody's going to come forward. They're probably, I would assume they already have. I think plus like who was saying the video. There's videos everywhere. Every building in that area. I'm very familiar with that area in Green Street. There are cameras everywhere.
And getting people to cooperate is another issue for police. What would you say to anyone who may know who this is? The government, that is.
Would they cooperate?
They're not cooperating with police. Police are having a hard time getting people to talk. What would you say to those people?
I would ask them to come forward, mainly for the family. Like if this was your child or your brother or your sister, your uncle or your cousin or whoever, you would want to know. Like even me, just for the minuscule trauma that I have from this, because this is not my son, but it still hurts me that it's somebody's son. I would want to, and I'm digging for answers. That's why I'm looking. I want to know. I don't know why that's going to be healing for me, but I want to know. Like I want to know why. Like why? I don't care of his fame. I don't care who he was. Like it's just there's too much of this going on. People just, reach for a gun and that's it. It's like total disregard for human life. So in my heart and soul, that bothers me as just a human being on the planet. He could have been hiding. The shooter could have been hiding, and as soon as I pressed the button, he could have been on the elevator and came out, pow, pow, right there with me. So that's why I was like this when I literally was like this, and I want people to know that there's good people. In a bad situation, there was some piece of goodness there. Does that make sense? Like we see stuff on TV like every day. It's too much. Sorry, it's too much sometimes. And we're just like barely a year out of COVID, and the world is not the same. And I just want something good to come out of this. Somebody to know that good people sometimes show up just because,
You talked about it briefly, but something
Sorry.
to talk about. No, please don't. No, I'm sorry. This is the emotion that I think will help kind of keep this story going and make people kind of start. It's still a shock for everybody. But I think when you are natural like this, it helps people to kind of connect the dots and then help solve the case. Sorry. That's what I was just going to mention. You talk about something a lot of people don't talk about enough, and that's trauma that's associated with things like this. You having all this experience in the field, but never experiencing it like this, how are you dealing with it?
God.
One quick point of clarification. From the time that you heard the gunshots to the time, I know that you threw on clothes, you went downstairs, you grabbed your bag, and then you worked your way into the scene. How long do you think it was between the time that you heard the gunshots and the time you actually got to the now deceased?
I don't know for sure. Time is like...
5 minutes, 10 minutes?
It probably would have been max 10. 15? But I waited for the scene to clear too, so I don't know how... In my mind, when I was watching the scene, I had no plans in my head to go.
It cleared up pretty quickly, right?
Yeah. So whoever shot fled. Because you heard pow, 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 pow. And then silence. No more. Weren't any gunshots after that. So it was a pause. The people that were going to run, they ran. The people that were closer, I guess, to him, he was up on the 3rd floor and they were going back and forth. Where's the ambulance? Where's the ambulance? So then I knew, just streetwise assessment, I'm thinking, okay, if they're standing there and they're not fleeing, then the gunman's probably gone. I could have been wrong. But I heard the uncle, I thought the uncle was the victim. And that's why I went. Because I heard him going, oh, I thought it was pain. I thought that's the victim, he's down and he's in pain. So I'm gonna go see how I can help. I didn't even know what I was gonna need to do. I just grabbed what I could and went.
And you heard that when you were getting closer towards where they were. So, for that, we would ask that.
I didn't even have my phone with me.
Yeah. Okay. Clarification. What did you have in your bag when you got there? Like, what did you bring with you?
Medical supplies, because I do whatever I had. I have stuff to start an IV. Yeah. I'm an infusion nurse. Yeah, a first aid kit. I have a blood pressure. I have a stethoscope. I have everything. Because I have to have everything. I'm on the road. I got to take my clinic with me.
It's like your go bag.
It's my go bag. Yeah. So I grabbed that and some supplies and yeah. Because that was my thinking when I heard him, who I thought was the victim, in agony. Even though in my head I'm going, oh my God, I'm like, I could not have lived with myself if I knew I had the equipment to save his life and I didn't act on it. If I would have found out the next day that boy bled to death because EMS took too long, I would be more devastated than I am right now.
Do you recall hearing the ambulance's arrival?
No. All of that is a blur. The only thing I remember from that night was the uncle, and I will never forget his face. Never.
And after everything was over, you did talk to HPD, correct?
I went back over there. I went upstairs and called my daughter. I calmed down. I did not get any more sleep. I got 2 hours of sleep, and I had a patient the next morning. I went. I had to go out to Dayton to go see her. But I couldn't sleep. I was still kind of on adrenaline, kind of. And so I went back over to HPD about an hour or so later. They already had the crime scene tape up and all that. And I just went over there. I said, hey, I was the nurse that came over here. Do y'all need anything from me? Or do y'all need anything? Water? And I was like, thank you for what you're doing here up all night with all this. It's crazy. And they're like, did you see the shooting? And I said, I saw nothing. I came in way after that. And they said, we don't need anything from you. I'm like, okay.
Like and follow me on YouTube, on Instagram, on YouTube, Sleepy Time, videos to help you sleep.